Hey there, folks. It's Jay Frost speaking to you from, of course, the Philanthropy Mastermind series. It's such a pleasure to welcome you back if you've been here before. And of course, if this is new to you, welcome to the community. It's great to have you aboard. We've been doing this series going back to 2016, as I was just sharing with our guest today, who I'll be introducing to you in a moment. We are nearing episode number 600 of this thing. So there's lots of content out there, which we would love to share with you. And you can learn all about that at the website of our sponsor. Very generously, since 2016, DonorSearch has been underwriting this non-commercial series, which brings leaders in the field of fundraising and philanthropy to you. And you can see much of that content, at least for the last 2 years of recordings, over on the DonorSearch website at donorsearch.net, as well as on their YouTube channel. So I hope you'll check all that out. And in fact, there's a little QR code. You probably saw it at the beginning. You're going to see it again at the end, which will allow you to join up on the mailing list so you don't miss any of the programs, so you can participate in them live when you have time, like you're probably going to be doing today, so you can be part of the conversation, asking your questions, but also offering your own experience into the blend of what we discuss here. We won't be talking about DonorSearch otherwise today, unless our guest mentions them to you for some reason, and it's not through any lack of appreciation or affection, but we keep our focus squarely on the guests here. But I suspect that you are as interested and devoted to your supporters as we are throughout the sector. And that means you probably want to know a little bit more about them, and you can learn a lot more about them through our friends at DonorSearch. So while you're over at the website checking out all there is to know about the Mastermind series, do take a look as well as what they have to offer. I'm sure you'll appreciate it, and your donors will too. Now, with that, I want to, of course, welcome you into the conversation today. And that's something you can do, as you saw in those prefatory slides, by using either the chat or the Q&A. And if somebody would just start warming that thing up for us, we'd really appreciate that. This is a wonderful place to play. It's your sandbox. So do feel free to go in there right now and just say hello. And you can do that and also perhaps let us know maybe which part of the country or world that you're in, maybe what you do at your organization, what organization you're from, whatever you feel like sharing. I know it would be helpful to the other people who are with us today, as well as to our guest. So hello, Mitch. Thank you. It's good to see you from Austin. Jen, thanks very much for being here. We're looking forward to your session from Massachusetts. Jonna Palm from rainy Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Yes, rainy here too. We were just talking about that before. So, wow, Kristen, Paula, Cassandra, Indra, Katie, Lizzie, it's great to see you all here. Thank you very much. And good to see some of your organizations too, and some of the work that you do, including my friends at Interlochen Public Radio at IPR, something I'm proud to support. So great to see all of you guys here today, and really great to have you in a conversation with our friend, Lisa Wolf. Lisa, if you want to come on camera, I want to do just a briefest of introductions to you, because I know you're going to tell people a little bit about your work. But first, I just want to say hello. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Jay. I'm really excited to be here today.
It's great to have you here again. You were kind enough to share before, including in our podcast series. So we'll make sure we include a link to that later. But today, you're going to be sharing a lot from your experience working with, of course, Westfall Gold. And for people who don't know the firm, I know you talk a little bit more about it later. And I just have to say, I was initially introduced to this through Paul Edwards years ago. And the reason why it's so fascinating to me is because there are so many events that surround us, fundraising events, for good or ill. I think we all feel like we have to do them or go to them. What you do is different. And the idea of providing an opportunity for people to get together and really bond around an idea, people who have the ability and the passion to support the cause, and how much money is raised at these events is so extraordinary that it's really a pleasure to have you kind of introduce us to some of the concepts underneath all that maybe any of us can apply, whether or not we have the good fortune to work with you and your colleagues. Today, of course, we're talking about gatherings. That's the title that you suggested, and the power they have to unleash generosity, which is a big thing for us these days. And the question, of course, is what is behind that and the neuroscience of it. So I know you're going to introduce us to a lot of that. So maybe I should just step back and let you take us there.
Sure. Well, two things. First, I want to give a shout out to, I think it was Jonna from Harrisburg. I am right by you in the rainy weather as well. So I live in Mechanicsburg. And also a shout out to Paul Edwards, because as I was putting this presentation together, I thought about him, and I'll note it when I get to that part. But I love that you brought Paul up, as we have worked together on a number of these events, and I been privileged to do that with him. So let me dive into our topic today, which is the power of gathering. And sorry, I was planning to have no technical difficulties, and now it appears that I am.
I'll let you know as soon as those appear, not to worry.
Okay, there we go.
Yep, all set.
And I think we are all set. Okay, great. So the topic for us today, the power of gathering, this comes from the experience that we have at Westfall Gold. Real quickly, I give you a sense of who we are. This is not to be a commercial for us, but I think it gives a sense of what we do. We are an experience design agency and a fundraising consultancy, working with organizations who are passionate about advancing good. So we work with all kinds of nonprofits across the country, and helping them to bring their highest capacity donors to a multi-day weekend. That has for 20 years been our signature offering. We are today moving into one-night events as well as 1- and 2-night events. So it's changing a little bit, but all of the principles that I want to share with you today really are part of the learnings that we've had over 20 years, gathering high net worth families together to support a cause. So how did this all happen? For me, and I think this is important because I've been in your shoes. I served as SVP of Marketing and Communications for Cure International quite a while ago. I actually am celebrating my 9th anniversary with Westfall Gold today. And so this concept was introduced to me about 20 years ago at the idea of having a fundraising weekend to bring high capacity donors to an event was really new to our organization. And we were funded by major donors, but they were still a small group of people that were carrying the load to the annual burden of funding our hospitals around the world. A board member introduced us to this idea, and it really, to be honest, it sounded too good to be true. Invite high capacity donors to a complimentary weekend at a 5-star resort, tell them your story, bring in some speakers, serve them great meals, and wait for the magic to happen. Even more so was the promise that we'd raise several $1 million from 40 or 50 couples attending the weekend. So there was lots of emotion around this. And I have to say, skepticism and disbelief, laced with maybe some curiosity and just a little bit of hope that this was going to be a good strategy for us. As we approached that first weekend, the CEO stopped me in the hall probably 3 weeks before we were about to have our first event. He was checking on attendance and some details. And he said, I got to confess, I don't think this is going to work. It kind of stopped me in my tracks. I just spent the last year planning this event and facing my own insecurities. Is this going to work? Am I going to have a job after all of this? And so now I had to manage his doubts. I did my best to reassure him that we were following the plan and it was surely going to work. So I went back to my desk, and to be honest, I was pretty unnerved. Would it work? Would people really show up for a 3-day weekend and in the end give us money, and actually a lot of money? So what was happening there is we really didn't understand the power of gathering. And I'll get to the punchline there at the end. We did. We raised probably $2.2 million. This was back in 2007. And so for us as a smaller organization that had to raise $6 million a year, that actually was huge. So what I've come to learn, and through this experience, is the impact of these gatherings to build community, build trust, deepen knowledge of the mission and the vision, and inspire donors to think bigger. And again, I want to reiterate that everything I'm going to talk about here is founded on these principles that we know for multi-day gatherings, but this is absolutely applicable to any event that you are doing, whether it's a small in-home gathering of donors, a one-night gala, whatever it might be. I think it's really important to think about what these principles are that we're going to go through. So for us at Westfall Gold, we believe, and I have come to believe, that this is one of the best ways to raise money and to deepen these relationships with your major donors. From our experience, we really see the power of gatherings to accelerate engagement. 81% of donors making a gift larger than their last prior gift, their largest gift. 62% of the donors that come to these events are not major donors to start with, make a major donor gift. And this isn't a point that I want you all to take notice of. 19% of affluent individuals say that they haven't been, that should actually, okay, sorry. Yeah, that's right. 19% say they've been invited to in-person events. We're missing the boat by not inviting them to these type of gatherings. And that comes from the Bank of America study on philanthropy. So what's happening here when we gather? What I didn't realize when I was at Cure is that all of the necessary elements were in place to create a powerful experience. What I thought was a checklist of to-dos was really a roadmap for designing a purposeful event. And it was one that was being crafted to touch the hearts and minds of our donors. So the longer I worked in this space, I eventually left Cure to come and work at Westfall Gold, because honestly, the first event that I did at Cure, when I saw what was happening, and having had an events background, working in politics for many years, I was blown away by what I saw. And I realized that this was something that I wanted to be a part of. So the more that I learned about this, I got curious. I wanted to really understand why this worked, what was happening for the giver that sparked this incredible generosity. What would motivate somebody to give a gift significantly larger than they had given before? What would compel someone who had only ever given a few $100s to give a six-figure gift, and sometimes even $1 million gift, after just spending a few days at an event? So as I asked these questions, I became fascinated with the science and the psychology behind gatherings, and really did come to believe that there is no more effective way to raise money for a cause than to utilize gatherings. So that's what I'd like to share with you today. So we're going to talk about the emotions that are involved here, as well as the neuroscience, that what's going on in our brains when we're confronted with a cause or an opportunity. And then how can we take what we know from the emotions and the brain science and put together an event that really has the potential to engage donors at whatever level. So these emotions, when we bring a group of people together, it creates this dynamic that's hard to replicate when you're just with one or two people. Those of you that are out there that are doing major donor work, you know what it's like to get together with one or two people and try to tell the story and draw them in. It becomes more of an informational session. And of course, you're trying to engage them, to learn about them and learn about what their interests are. It's hard to create an experience when you're just one-on-one or meeting with a couple. But when you're in a group, there's a sense of shared identity and common purpose. we start to look around and we notice that there are other people who care about the same things that we do. It also has this gentle nudge for people to get on board. Being part of a group is powerful. And you can look around and you start thinking to yourself, hey, together, we can actually make a real difference. It gets people thinking about being more generous because they believe their contribution combined with others can have a major impact. There's also a sense of shared responsibility. So we're looking around and we're saying, actually, I am not the only one here who can have an impact on funding this. I'm not responsible for it. We have a shared responsibility. I can be part of a group that takes on the responsibility to fund whatever the cause might be. And when we look around and we see other people being generous, it's that social proof or the influence that makes generosity contagious. And then in a group setting, emotions really do get intensified. When you're surrounded with other people who are focusing on a cause, something that is close to your heart, or you see someone in need, your feelings of empathy start to get ramped up. That happens much more readily when you're together in a group as opposed to just hearing something one-on-one. And the group essentially becomes this echo chamber for compassion. And of course, there is some subtle peer pressure involved here, the good kind, really, but that the group values group values generosity, and you feel like you want to get on board. So that's that emotional piece of it. And then I'm going to talk about feel-good hormones a little bit later as we talk about the neuroscience, but it's that positive group experience that boosts your oxytocin level. And that is responsible for helping to build trust and create bonding within the group. When we think about the emotions and how the emotions can trigger reactions, we also have to think about the fact that what we know about the power of human connection is it's much harder to do from behind a screen, which is ironic that I'm talking to you here from behind a screen, but I can't see you. I don't know what your body language is like. I'm talking and I'm hoping that I'm entertaining you and you're interested in what we're talking about. There's been research at Yale University that shows your brain lights up more when you are in face-to-face interactions as compared to these virtual ones. So that power of human connection does have the ability to build stronger and deeper relationships. Like I was saying, I can't see you, so I'm not sure what's going on in your mind. I don't see any cues, but your brain, when you're together, starts to pick up on body language, the social cues. It keeps your attention better. I don't know what you're all doing out there, but you might be answering a text or looking at some email. When we're together in person, it's much harder to, one, hide that you're doing that, but two, hopefully you're engaged and you're not feeling the desire to, the pull to be distracted. So it's fascinating to me what happens in the brain as you're confronted with the opportunity to be generous, and how all of these the emotions and the connection, the power of human connection in someone's evaluation on whether or not they want to give. So let's take a little bit of look here through. There's a ton of research out there on the various parts of your brain, and many of these are there's many more than what I've decided to pull out here, but I went down the rabbit hole. I invite you to go do that and really understand what's going on, because it did, for me, it was fascinating. So the prefrontal cortex, this is our decision-making, planning, impulse control region of the brain. And it helps to evaluate the costs and benefits of generous acts. This is the part of your brain that starts to ask questions like, if I help out, what's going to happen? Is this going to be worth it? So we're trying to answer those questions in that area. Then the tempo, I practiced this so many times, the temporoparietal junction, that's the perspective taking and empathy part of your brain. And it's associated with allowing us to understand the needs and feelings of others. So your brain essentially, this region of the brain is helping you to step into someone else's shoes. And it makes you, it drives the empathy that you have for another person's situation. The mirror neuron system this fascinates me. So this system is where you understand and share others' emotions. You don't even need to hear what someone else is saying. You can look at their face and you can intuit how they're feeling. And that's what this system is doing. So if you're looking at me and I'm smiling and I'm engaging, I'm calm, you're feeling a sense of that too. If I start, making faces, or I'm angry, or I'm sad about something, or frustrated, you'll start to see that too, and you begin to mirror that reaction. This is pretty interesting research that actually was done by a group of Italian researchers who were studying monkeys. And what they realized is when a monkey grabbed an object and the other monkeys watched them do that, they wanted to mirror that reaction. And so they learned that this type of brain cell responds equally when we perform an action or when we witness someone else perform the same action. So these neurons can help explain how and why we read people's minds and how we feel empathy for them. So watching an emotion being performed or an action can activate some parts of the brain down to the single neuron in a monkey. And so that makes sense that that's what's happening to us when we are watching someone in need, or we're seeing a generous act, listening to those same feelings. And then the striatum, this part of your brain, think about this as the brain's cheerleader for generosity. This is the place that's going to light up when you're generous. It's the feel-good vibes. It helps you weigh the pros and cons of being generous. It's like when you're sharing your favorite food with a friend. Your brain is assessing that situation and saying, okay, well, if I share it, I'm going to have less. But if I share it, I'm going to feel good. So it's like that. The brain gets excited about seeing someone else benefit from your generosity. And I like to think about that as it's the secondhand joy when you get knowing that someone is benefiting from your action. The anterior cingulate cortex, if you want to think about the striatum as the cheerleader for generosity, this is kind of like the referee. This is the place in your brain that helps you navigate the complex decisions and emotions and social aspects involved with being generous. It's less about those warm and fuzzies than it is more about the broader implication behind generous acts. So as the referee, when you're deciding to be generous or not, it helps you sort out those conflicting impulses, like wanting to keep things for yourself, saying, okay, well, I worked hard for this money, I want to keep it. But this part of your brain is helping you decide, and it monitors those impulses of keeping it for yourself and wanting to give it to others. It's also a key player in empathy. There's lots of parts of your brain that are involved in that. And it helps you understand what others are experiencing that can motivate generous behavior. So interestingly, this part of the brain lights up when you experience both social rejection and see someone in pain. And it can nudge you to be generous in order to alleviate others' suffering. So when you start to wonder if something's worth doing, it's this part of the brain that's going to put the brakes on the me first impulse. And then our happy hormones, oxytocin and dopamine. These are really powerful neurotransmitters in your brain. Think of the oxytocin as that warm and fuzzy hormone. It's the chemical version of somebody giving you a hug and making you feel connected to other people. And when you have that oxytocin flowing, you pick up on people's feelings, you want to help out. It opens up your heart a bit and makes you tune into people around you. And then dopamine is your brain's reward system. This is the place where this is the feel-good chemical that makes you say, oh yeah, that was awesome. When I do something nice for somebody, dopamine is going to kick in, gives me a high five, and just really makes me feel good about what I just did. So oxytocin sets the stage, makes you notice when people need to be helped out, and makes you care. So it makes you more empathetic. And then dopamine comes in and seals the deal, says, okay, when I do a generous thing, the dopamine rewards you for that good feeling, and your brain says, I want to do more of that. So it's the reinforcing that behavior too that makes you want to continue to be generous, because you're getting a positive feedback loop for being generous. So oxytocin gets you in the mood to be generous, and the dopamine swings in and wants you to keep it going. So I kind of like to think of these as a dynamic duo for being generous. Okay, we've delved into the brain science. We've talked about the emotions. The brain here, this just critical in role in generosity, helping you understand other people's needs, generating empathy, evaluating your actions, getting rid of those selfish impulses where you say, I want to keep this for myself, motivates you to be generous, and creates those positive feelings associated with giving. So why in the world did we just talk about all of that? Well, it's important to understand. I mean, your donors are human beings. We all operate in a similar way when it comes to wanting to be generous, what drives us to be generous, how we experience emotion. We are emotional beings. It's important to know that as you start to craft what an experience, a gathering could be like, and then to unlock the power of that. So how do we get started? The important thing here, I think, to note is that it's super easy to get way down the road. You have a board chair or a volunteer or somebody that is got a great idea for an event. We want to invite this particular speaker, or we should do it at this particular venue, and let's serve these great appetizers, whatever it might be that is on their mind. That's all well and good, but let's take a step back. Let's start at the beginning and ask these questions. What do we want our guests to experience? How do we want them to feel? And what kind of journey are we going to take them on? This should always guide your planning. Let's have our vision in mind before we get started. Okay, so to answer some of these questions, it's important here to talk about how you can create some memorable experiences. This first part is what made me think of the gentleman that Jay talked about, Paul Edwards. Combine unexpected elements and environments in fresh ways. He says, how are you going to surprise and delight your guests? Keep that in mind as you are thinking through ways in which you can construct a program. So is it a special music performance? Is it a special gift? We're big on gifting. Our guests each night get pillow gifts in their room, and it's always something that is either personal to them or ties into the weekend, the mission of the organization. And then engage the senses. So we really can think about ways in which we can engage the senses all the way across the board here. So sight. You engage the sense of seeing in so many ways, whether that is a visually beautiful setting, The events we do are always at beautiful resorts, places that high net worth families want to attend. It's going to draw the guest in, brings a sense of calm. So what I'm seeing in my environment, it could be images that are hung around the room of the people that your organization is serving, faces that you show in a video. So thinking about the mirror neuron system that we talked about, how does it process what it sees? It processes happiness, joy, anger, despair. So all of those emotions that we want to utilize to create empathy for the people that you're serving, and drawing the donor into that. Hearing, what am I hearing at this event? How are we using music? Music is a powerful tool in driving emotion. It really, there's been lots of research that shows the music can be that soundtrack for whatever the event is. And when that's triggered again, it can be a powerful recollection of a moment. Touch is there's a strong link there too between emotion and touch. We know that physical touch creates that connection between people. It helps to build trust. The other thing, though, that I think about here is tactile. So are there things that you can put into your event that creates some kind of tactile experience for your guests? An example that I love that we did, I think probably 2 years ago with an organization, is their theme for the weekend was breaking barriers, building momentum. So Friday night of the event, we had the donors smash plates. We had a whole collection of plates, and we had a station set up, and they could throw the plates, they could hammer them, however they wanted. The plates were smashing in bits and pieces, and the donors were having a lot of fun with that. They didn't really understand what we were trying to do with it, but it was a fun exercise, and they had heard the theme, breaking barriers. The next day, we had the payoff for that, though. We had a mosaic artist create the organization's logo, and we had the donors take the pieces that they had smashed the night before and create this beautiful mosaic that's now hanging in the organization's office. And then had the CEO of the organization speak about that in his strategic close. So the breaking part, how we're helping to break barriers for the people they're serving, and building the momentum with the clear visual there. So there's lots of ways to bring a tactile activity into an event. Smell, again, closely linked to emotion. I think you might all be able to come up with something like the smell of apple pie cooking takes you back to your grandma's kitchen, or some of those, like the food smells, or even just how it smells to walk into somebody's house, right? It brings up all of your memories about that person or situations. So what we do know is that it is the part of your brain responsible for that is in the front of your brain, the amygdala and the hippocampus. And that's the part of the brain that closely drives emotion and memory. So this year we are working on an event for a client, and we're going to be hosting a Seder dinner on Friday night for probably 200 guests, which is an event in and of itself. I challenged the team, because we are going to be projecting images from Jerusalem around projection mapping around the room. I said, well, what could we do that would help us kind of even smell ancient Jerusalem? So I'm looking up, what are the smells of ancient Jerusalem? Some of them we probably want to stay away from. But things like the olive oil and the spices, any way that you can ignite that sense of smell, again, connecting to emotion and memory. Taste, can you incorporate some type of taste into the experience? That might be a delicious food or drink. If you work internationally, how do you incorporate tastes of the region to really elevate the experience for your guests? The next couple of things that I want to talk about really are related to the content of the programming. And we have lots of other things that we tend to put into the program, such as, entertainment. We'll bring in music, concert artists, that type of thing. But there are these next 5 really are what I believe are the non-negotiables and should be in any event. First, you have to set the context. You have to help people understand, why are we here? We want to create that sense of psychological safety for your guests, that they understand what's going to happen throughout the weekend. They know what's expected of them. For us, in the beginning of the weekend, we're helping them understand the details, and we have a really important part of the why we are here talk, that's what we call it, that helps people to let their guard down, that we are not going to be asking them for money all throughout the weekend. We let them know there's going to be an ask. We're going to do that on Saturday. The decision to give is between you and your family. We're just really glad that you're here. And we're excited to have this opportunity to get to know you better and see if this is a place that you would be interested in investing. That takes all the tension down in the room, and they understand the lay of the land. So whatever that looks like in any type of gathering, start with the context. Make sure that you are creating the case. We talk about a 3-part case: emotional, intellectual, and transformational. That is really important to set the stage. Who are you? What are you doing? What is the mission of this organization all about? Who do we serve? Why does it work? And breaking that into those 3 parts, telling the emotional story of what's happening, the intellectual piece of it, what actually do we do? And then that transformational case is the part where I think organizations miss it sometimes. It's really important for donors to understand how their giving is impacting individual people. So we want the facts and the figures, and we want to make sure that we establish that. But we know that our brains are wired to sort through conflicting impulses and complex decision making to decide whether it's worth it or not. So your donor is going to sort through all of these things, and at the end, come to a conclusion: is this worth it? And your brain is going to actually answer that question. So we want to make sure that we are connecting to the heart and the mind, and then the story of one person whose life has been changed. That's important because, again, I'll go back to this. If you haven't referenced these studies that Bank of America, their study of philanthropy that they do, I'd highly recommend it to you. Lots of great information in there. And it was fun when we went through it the first time to look at everything that we have in our 3.5-day weekend, how closely a lot of that does marry to what we're finding in that study. But these top motivations for giving: belief in the organization, belief that their gift will make a difference. 96% of people said they were motivated always or sometimes by their belief in the mission, and just over 94%, again, by the belief that their gift is going to make a difference. So how are you answering that question for your donors? Financial credibility. Now, this one goes to not a lot of emotion here, but this is related to trust building. And again, sorting through that information, when your brain can check off, oh, okay, I get it. They've answered that question for me. I don't have to wonder about that and throw that up as a reason to not give. So it's important. This is always a talk that we do at any weekend, and it's short. We don't have to dwell on this, but again, check it off and make sure that the donor understands how you're using their funds. Is there board governance over and oversight over the finances? Is the organization rated by charity rating agencies, and what does that look like? So making sure that donors understand that and can move on and not ask that doesn't hang them up. And of course, vision. We want to share the vision, share your big dreams. We know that donors are inspired by big vision. So you have to give them a sense of what the future looks like. What the future looks like, both with you in it, and sometimes a good way to express it is without you in it. What would happen if we didn't exist? That's not a world that we want to envision. Sometimes helping donors think through that is a great way to share the vision. But I hear a lot of organizations, when you ask them what's your vision, they talk about programs, they talk about what they do, but they're not helping the donor understand and envision the future. So how's the world going to be different if I invest in the work that you're doing and come alongside you to support the work? So important piece there. And you can't forget to ask. That this has to be part of everything that you do. And I want you to think about, when you're putting that gathering together, how you're going to do this strategically, sharing the need and making that invitation. So donors want to hear that big vision, but they also want to understand what their gift is going to mean to you. So for us, we create giving handles. Those are things like a $250,000 gift helps 25 students, covers their tuition, or $100,000 gift purchases a piece of life-saving medical equipment. We are not trying to get someone to give $100,000 or to give $250,000, but we're trying to get them to understand how we're going to use their gift. And we aren't asking, so we're not asking for restricted giving. We just want to share those examples, because if you've done everything well from start to finish and crafted the story for them and drew them into it, raised their empathy and compassion, they're going to be willing to give you an unrestricted gift. We call that moving from transactional to transformational giving. And please leave space to have fun, connect with your donors, and create a fun experience. Don't think, even in a one-night event, I've got so much to pack in here that we can't have any fun. Remember, you have to surprise and delight. Find those moments where you can have fun, because it is critical that when people leave your event, they're leaving with that elevated level of oxytocin and dopamine, and you're not going to achieve that if you're not having any fun. So think about the environment, the time that you allow people to connect with each other, the setting itself, and the ways in which you're engaging people to get to know each other, and some fun surprises. Okay, what did we learn? So gatherings are powerful ways to inspire people to be generous if you start with the right questions. Those questions we talked about. What do you want them to experience? What do you want them to feel? What kind of journey are you taking them on? You plan ways to engage all of their senses, and you include the right content. I love this quote, which I just learned may actually not have been Maya Angelou, but you're probably all familiar with this. People might forget about what you said or what you did, but they're never going to forget about how you made them feel. And I think if we start with that in mind, how are we going to make people feel on this journey? We're going to be able to tell our stories in a powerful way and engage them in our cause, which then, if we've done it all well, should open up to just unlocking this extraordinary generosity. So there's my contact information, but I would love to hear what your questions are, and see if we can help you create some powerful gatherings.
Thank you so much for all that, Lisa. And if you wouldn't mind, there are two things. You had a slide back with some statistics early on. Can you share that again? Because I know that we had Julie in the audience was asking about that.
Sure. Let me see, without making you all dizzy, if I can go back to that. Was that related to
And
the
she didn't say,
gatherings?
but I think maybe it was the one with the 19% from
There.
Bank of America. And so we just wanted to put that up on the screen. This is probably a good time to mention a couple of things. First, Lisa, if people want to get the slides from you, is that something you're willing to share, or can people reach out to you about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to share.
Okay. Often we're asked also about a recording. We are making a recording of a session. Don't go away, because this is a great time for questions. But if you'd like to see that recording, you'll see an email come to you with a link to the recording. But for these slides, could you also pull up your contact information one more time so people know how to reach you? And then in addition, what we'll do is, Jackie, if you can put that in the chat as well, once she pulls that up on the screen, that would be very helpful.
There you go.
There we go. So once again, folks, this is a great time for questions. And as we jump into them, I want to just note a couple of things. You've name-checked Bank of America a few times. They have a great study. And in fact, we have Diane Chips-Bailey, who is at the National Philanthropic Strategy Executive role at Bank of America Private Bank. She's going to be joining us on November 14th for a session. And we haven't started advertising that yet, but if you are really into this study, and I am, and you are clearly, Lisa, you'll want to note that on your calendar. That's November 14th. She'll be talking about the latest study. And we also have a couple of sessions coming up next week, one of which is with Jen Klein, author of Giving is Selfish. That's on Tuesday, and on Thursday, Lisa Greer, who wrote this book just recently, is a donor also, and is talking about the donor experience, which relates a lot to what you're talking about here, is the author now of the Essential Fundraisers Handbook. So that's on Thursday. So we hope you'll join us for that. This is, again, a great time to just ask whatever questions you have, whether that's about maybe the kinds of events that you've held and the responses you've gotten, or how to make sure that you're truly engaging with people in a way that's really touches their heart, or maybe the right part of the brain. And we do have, let me see, I know a question or a comment earlier from Jonna, who had said, the smell of new crayons can inspire creativity, which I love.
Yeah. Having visited the Crayola factory, I agree.
Yeah. In fact, I think about things like that. I never think about smell, but it's so true. I was just reading an article about some of the major hotel chains and how careful they are about the mixture of the scents in the lobby. And so some people go looking for that scent so they can keep it in their homes to keep reliving a really nice, very curated kind of experience. And then let me see. We also have a note here from Julie, who said, can the gathering be an evening cocktail party versus a whole weekend? I know you have a lot of thoughts on this. What do you think?
I sure do. I think that, look, this is what I've been doing for a long time. I believe 3.5 days is amazing, gives you time to meet with your donors, build community, all of that. But I realize that that isn't for every organization, whether it's because of the investment or the size of their donor file. So I think I would really encourage you to take these principles and do everything you can to put as many of them as you can into an evening cocktail party. That might just mean that the talks are shorter, or you only have one experience, but make sure that somewhere along the way you're working in those essential elements that I shared, like set the context, share what you're doing, share the vision, line or two about finance, whatever it is that as we covered here, there's definitely ways to do it, and we're doing some of those events too. So I do believe that with these elements, you can have a really successful gathering, one night evening gala.
And we're not talking so much about the time here as about the content. Mariette had asked, is it better to highlight one person's story rather than multiple people's stories? So, how much is too much, I guess?
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts about this. So if you see, one of the mistakes I think organizations do make when they put a video together is they try to put too many people in it, trying to hear too many people's stories. And in the end, it dilutes everybody's story. So that's why we favor the power of one person's story. And then depending on the length of your event, we'll tell stories verbally in the content. Over the course of a 3-day weekend, we'll have three videos that tell one person's story. So, I don't think you don't want to overdo it. Again, you dilute the power. Like, pick a really strong story and draw the emotion from that.
It must be hard to pick that story, because especially if you have this bounty of different kinds of stories that talk to the work of the organization, how do you help them to find the right one?
We vet these stories. We ask them to give us 9, 12, 15 sometimes stories, and we vet them to make sure that that transformational case is really there, and that it's not just a nice story. We want the emotion. Our video producers are always looking to see where's the moment the person's story changes. So a lot of times you're going to use the device of a dark to light story. Darkness challenges transformation as a result of the organization stepping into that person's life. So think about it. Yeah.
And we have a number of questions also in the Q&A, so I want to make sure I get to at least a couple of them. Andrea had asked, would you provide thoughts on helping organizations, particularly small ones, gain the confidence to make the ask of a prospective large donor in person, invite cultivating relationship, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I would say to you, first, you should feel confident to make the ask. You should feel confident about the work that you're doing. It's an invitation to the donor. I think so many times, whether it's a small or a large organization, people get like, oh, I'm coming with my hand out. You're actually not. You're coming to them with an opportunity. Don't be afraid to ask. Be confident in the work that you do and the results that you have and the transformation that you're making in people's lives, and then go boldly.
We did have a question from Samantha, and this is a theme throughout our whole sector. So I really do like this question. I'm sure you have thoughts on it, which is, do you ever hear feedback from donors or attendees about the expense of hosting the event on the organization that they're considering supporting?
We do. And there's the events that we do there's a significant investment that goes into doing those. And we coach our clients on how to talk about that. But the reality is that we know that at the level we're trying to do these events at, high net worth families, we're holding an event that meets their expectations. So I think as long as you're in line with your donor's expectation, your target audience, you're fine. We're not going to invite someone that is at a level of buying a $50 or $100 ticket to a multi-day weekend. So I think it's that appropriate. One, it would be uncomfortable for them, and two, they would be much more likely to say this is extravagant, right? So it's about aligning the donor expectation with their giving ability. And I didn't do my shout out to DonorSearch in the beginning, but I did want to say that they are our partner in helping us understand the wealth analytics for the people we're inviting, and that's important. That helps you match that expectation.
I do want to ask you about the pool of individuals for this, and I've had these conversations with you offline as well as here, and that is that an organization does need to have a list, right? They don't come to you or some other kind of event planner and say, can you give us a list of people, right? And right. So you must, I guess there are two things. One is to help see if the organization is ready for an event of this type. Do they have the people who have the ability and the passion to attend a really special event like this? And then the other part is what you were getting at a moment ago. How do you use information or data to really figure out, are they the right people or not? Because often we don't know. We may be judging solely based on anything from the cars they drive to the zip codes they live in to the last gift they made. And those aren't always the proper indicators of a person's ability or interest.
Oh yeah, for sure. We definitely want to make sure that we understand who's on the file. And so for us, that actually begins even in the sales process, because we don't want to encourage an organization to do a multi-day event when it's going to be better to do a one-night event based on who's in their file. So that is important. But I would say that from our research, we know that 88% of the donors that we find on the file have not hit their capacity. So let me say, 88% of the donors you have on your file are not hitting their capacity gift. And that's what we do by looking at the wealth analytics. And I would do that for any event. We're working with some organizations doing one-night events, and we're helping them transition those from more of a ticket to a major donor or major gift type event based on some of that, so that we're not bringing donors in from the outside. The donors are on your file. You just have to go look.
And this isn't one and done, is it? I mean, this event, I guess, is part of an overall program, but it's a very important part.
Yeah. Oh, no. We have clients that are doing this as an annual event, kind of a stakeholders meeting, and they are continuing to see increased giving from donors, or there are people that are coming annually or bringing new people into it. Again, I think these events, and I would contend that this is one part of the overall development strategy, can be a significant part, but how you cultivate donors throughout the process of inviting them, but then on the back end as well, is certainly something that has to be, you have to take a look at and use this as a tool in the toolbox.
Again, thank you so much, Lisa, for all of this. Really, really great information from the way our brain is interacting with what we do to really concrete ways of thinking about what we organize, whether we have a chance to work with someone like you or we're trying to figure out how to do it ourselves. And it's really important to, I guess, to aim high and give people the chance to really engage with us in an optimal level. Maybe until an event like this, they haven't had a chance to do so. Really appreciate it. I want to thank everybody who's joined us live, as well as those who are listening to this recording. A reminder that this recording there will be a link to the recording rather in the email that is sent to you. And what would be especially helpful is, as we sign out now, you go ahead and fill out the survey as you conclude and let us know what you want to see and hear in the future. That's exactly how we program our sessions. So it's really invaluable to us. Please do fill that out. We'll look forward to seeing you next week for 2 sessions. So until then, take care. Thanks again, Lisa.
Thank you.